Alright, I may cuss, but I don't curse. We're going to get that situated first and then get into this double slit astrology video. Yes, we are continuing the wave. Speaking of wave, let me explain this diagram first before I get into the story, alright? So look, the diagram that we have here is the collapsed wave example number 1. So in the middle square, right, you see I have the word collapsed type there. That is the collapsed 3D experience that we experience when we are conscious, right? When we are here in this 3D game of life that we're playing, all right? Now, expanded from that around it is another square, which we call the wave. This is the wave interpretation or the subconscious mind that we have, which in this scenario is going to be relative to a dream, all right? So subconscious mind rules over dreams, rules over Pisces, 12th house and stuff like that. In case I got to catch you up to speed, listen. All right, so look. Now, as you can see, I have a dot going around the path, if you will, of the collapsed 3D experience, the conscious experience. And I have another dot that's according to the wave experience in the subconscious mind. And I have a line going from each dot to the other dot, all right, which is labeled the communicated path. Remember last video, if you haven't seen the videos that go from 1, 2, and 3 yet, I advise that you watch them. You should watch them before you see this one if this is your first time here. So I have a communicated path, which I spoke about in the other video, which says, okay, if we make plans to do something, right, then we should communicate to each other where, what time, and location we should meet up to execute that plan, right? So this is a communicated path that's labeled there for that purpose. Now, let's get into the dream that I had. Some of y'all have heard this video before. I don't know how long ago I've done it, but I've spoken about this dream before in a video before that I've had. This is one of the times that I've had a dream that actualized in 3D experience in the conscious, right? So first I had the vision in the subconscious mind as a dream, and then I experienced it, I would say about maybe 9 months to a year within having the dream. I know it wasn't that long because I've had other experiences where the dream didn't actualize until years later. So getting the timing down is something that we're going to explore sooner. But right now we're just going to keep it narrow to this particular scenario, to which it was like between 9 months and a year, probably something like that. So I had this dream, right? And this gets a little bugged out, but so what? You know, it's me. So I had this dream that I was in my apartment. This was when I was living in another spot, right? And I'm walking through my apartment. I got my robe on. Now, I got nothing else but my robe. But it's just, like I said, it's me, right? So I got nothing else but my robe. And I'm walking through my apartment. And I realized that someone is waiting for me outside of my apartment downstairs. So I lived in an upstairs apartment, right? So I'm walking to the window to see who it is outside. I look out the window and I see who it is. It's a girl. She's come over for, when I'm having a dream, I don't know the particular reason that she's there for, though. You know what I'm saying? I'm just dreaming and I'm walking right into it. So I go to the window, I look out, I see it's the girl. Boom. I said, all right, boom. I went downstairs and I opened up the door for her. She comes upstairs. Now, I remember after like turning around and speaking to her, whatever the case may be, she said these words. She said, "You think you slick." I'm like, yo, what you talking about? She said, "You knew I was coming over here. You knew, so this is why you're dressed the way that you're dressed." I'm like, man, knock it off. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is how I'm always dressed in my apartment. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes, or most of the times, I don't even have my robe on. So knock it off. You know what I'm saying? This woman has seen me naked before and stuff like that anyway. But that was the end of the dream. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what happened after that. And like I said, when I had the dream, I didn't know really what the occasion was. I just had a dream. So boom, months later down the line, well, that experience right there, remember, that's the wave experience, right? It's a memory in my mind that I've had subconsciously. Now, the way that I've been speaking about this, we already know. We have dreams, and they are memories that we have experienced before in our lives. It just depends on the path that we take in the 3D conscious realm, which will determine whether we get to experience that dream or not, right? So months on down the line, I'm chilling, I'm doing my thing. Now I speak to this woman, right? Via text or the phones, one of the two, you know what I mean? And we're speaking, we kicking it, and she's like, yeah, I'm gonna come over and I'm gonna do that thing that you wanted me to do with you. I'm like, all right, bet. And we had set up a time and an appointment and everything, right, for it to happen. She did not show up on the time that we had set up. Now, after we spoke, I'm thinking about the dream too. Like, I did have a dream about her, this, that, and the third, yada, yada, yada. I'm in my robe, this, that, and the third, right? But I'm not telling her that. I still to this day, I have not told her that I had this dream and this happened. She might laugh or she might be angry about it. Like, you knew that was happening and you ain't tell me nothing about it. I don't know. You know what I mean? But so we communicated. She didn't show up on that date. So I don't get angry enough and I don't even reach back out to her or nothing. You know what I'm saying? I'm just, it is what it is. Water under the bridge. Bars. I'm nice. We know that already. So then what happens is this. She reaches out to me the following day. And she's like, what's up? What you doing? I'm like, chilling. You know what I'm saying? I was like, what happened to you? I thought you was going to show up. So she told me why she couldn't show up the day prior. And she was like, but, I'm in the neighborhood. So I'm thinking about driving over there right now. Are you busy or are you available? I'm like, yo, come through. So while I'm on the phone with her, right, I'm looking at myself and I'm like, I got my robe on, but I got a pair of boxers on. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, all right, cool, come through. We're going to do this. So I'm asking her, like, yo, so how far are you away? She's like, because she already had my address or whatever. So she's like, yo, I'm like minutes away. You know what I'm saying? I'm pulling up in a few minutes. So I'm just like, oh, all right, cool. So then, boom, we finally hang up. And I'm thinking to myself, like, yo, this is crazy because this is probably the dream actually happening, right? So she rings the doorbell, just like in the dream. Now I'm walking towards the window just to make sure it's her, and I'm playing it out step by step, just like the dream was. The same way that you may experience a deja vu, right? So I'm walking towards the window. I look out. I see it's her. I'm like, all right. So then I'm about to go downstairs and open the door for her. And I'm like, what about this dream? What about this conscious experience is different from the dream? I'm like, oh shit, I got my boxers on. So I take my boxers off, fling them in a hamper. Like, nah, this is going to be exactly the way that I dreamed it, right? I don't want no stone unturned. I want it to be the same exact way. So I do that. I go downstairs. I open up the door for her, right? I know y'all probably like, yo, this is boy Wolf bugged out. I go downstairs, I open the door for her, right? So she comes upstairs. She says the exact same words verbatim. You think you slick. I'm like, what you talking about? She said, you know what you be doing. Gonna be dressed like this because you know I'm coming over. I'm like, listen, Ma, I'm always dressed like this. You know what I'm saying? Said the same exact words because I really was so excited in my subconscious mind. But I never told her. Like I told you, I never told her this, right? Not once. So then we went and did what we was set out to do, and that was the dream. Now, it's important that you understand this part of this dream, of this scenario that I'm speaking about, that the communicated path is what made that subconscious memory become actualized in the 3D, in the collapsed way, in the collapsed particle 3D realm of the game of life. It's very important that we know this because this can answer questions that we may have, or this can advance us in a way that lets us know how we execute these things in for real. Like I told y'all, I'll be doing research, but I also do constructivism. I'll use my own self in the name of science, right? So that's what I did. So let's get into this next slide. I got another diagram that we're going to talk about here. It's going to double down, should I say, on what we just spoke about, right? But in a more, I would say, more detailed way, probably. So this is a scenario, right? But instead of using the subconscious mind or the subconscious memory as a dream, I'm going to use another 12th house tactic or another Pisces tactic, which is the imagination, is ruled by those things, 12th house and Pisces, right? So just think about it. When you imagine and when you daydream, Pisces, I know y'all know exactly what I'm talking about. You imagine things, you daydream, you're using your subconscious mind. You're envisioning yourself doing something or preparing to see something have results in the way that you imagined it to be, right? So I got the same pretty much setup here. I got the collapsed 3D conscious experience that we have on Earth, right? And then I got the outer wave subconscious mind activity outside of it, right? Now, inside of the collapsed part right here, I have the sign Aries there, and I'm gonna tell you why. And on the outside wave, I have the sign Virgo, which I'm also going to explain why. So let's imagine this. Let's imagine this scenario, right? You're working at a place and you got a boss. The boss is the Aries. That's why Aries is there. And your boss is telling you about a task that's getting done in the workplace. And they're like, listen, we got these 4 places that need to be done. So let's say you got a job that's about, asks you to go to different utility poles in a certain neighborhood and climb up to the top and put a advertisement or a flyer or a poster or something like that and wrap it around the utility pole, right? And each one pays $100 when you put it up, right? So we're going to call the Virgo the employee, right? Makes sense. So the Virgo is listening to this task and they're like, okay, task, that's my middle name. Okay, we can do this. I can do that. So the dots that are on the collapsed way or the collapsed particle of the 3D are the different 4 locations, right? So now the Virgo gets access to like the full plan, the full map of where all of these different spots are, right? So the Virgo sees that there's more locations that we can do these tasks at. So then the Virgo starts to thinking of how to do what? Work smarter, not harder. That's also Virgo's middle name. So Virgo says, well, let me introduce this idea. Ignore that. Let me introduce this idea to my boss and see what they got to say about this. So Virgo says, hey, listen, I see that there's other locations here that we can do this thing at. You know what I'm saying? Why don't I go for all of these locations instead of just going for the 4 locations? But see, the thing that differs with these jobs, we'll call them, right, is that the 4 initial ones are within immediate vicinity, meaning you can walk to these different utility poles and you can climb up them and do the task, right? But the additional ones are in a more 8 block, maybe 16 block radius. So remember we talked about communicating the path, right, in the other video, and I explained that in the last slide. But there's also a way that you can commute a path, right? COMM, communication, commute, Gemini energy, right? So the Virgo says, but there's one catch. You know, I'd have to spend $34 on a weekly Metro card in order to reach those other locations. Sure, you could walk them, but it's going to take a whole lot more time. It's going to take a whole lot more manpower. You know what I mean? It's going to take more energy from me if I was to walk to all of those different spots. Let me just get the weekly Metro card and then I'll bang them all out. And then what'll happen is you obtain more money, right? So as you see in the key here, each task is $100 each. In the collapsed 3D experience, they would total $400. Of course, the Aries boss knows this, but the Virgo was thinking ahead of the curve. Like, listen, I spend the Metro card, yeah, it's going to cost $34, but I'll bring in $800, which would make the total $766. Now, this is imagined first, of course, right? This is imagined in the Virgo employee's mind, saying, you know what, I could do this, that, get the Metro card, bang, do 8 of them, get $766 in total instead. It's more. It brings the company more money, brings the company more profit, right? Yeah, there's a cost, but we're working smarter, not harder. So that happens, right? But, or they introduce that to the boss, and the bosses maybe be like, well, you know, thanks, but no thanks. You know what I'm saying? Reason being, because they are the boss and they have things set up the way that they have set up. Right now, I also have the word corporate in red attached to the 3D experience where the Aries boss is, the collapsed 3D particle, right? 3D consciousness experience. And then I have independent contractor on the outskirts in the wave where this additional scenario is imagined where more revenue, more money can come in, and less manpower, being used, right? So, first thing I want to say is this. With Aries, the boss having that type of setup, right? They may say to the Virgo employee, hey, listen, I understand where you're coming from and that's a great idea. However, I have other employees that will address the other locations. You know what I'm saying? And we don't need to do that. We don't need to go that route. And Virgo might have to stomach that, right? This is what a lot of Virgos go through in the workplace, and people with highly Virgo aspected planetary movement in their charts go through. They come up with these great ideas in the workplace, and they don't get the raises, they don't get the promotions or none of that because they're being perfect, right? And then somebody will shut it down. The reason I put Aries there as well, Aries is known as the CEO, the boss, and entrepreneurship and things of that nature. And also Aries is a commander, right? It commands things. And a lot of the times it could be tunnel vision. Look, this is the way that it is. This is the way that it's going down. Who asked you? Type attitude. You know what I'm saying? Just keeping it a beam. So this can happen now. The mindset that the Virgo has imagined is more suitable for an independent contractor mindset. Now, personally, right? If this was me in the workplace, I would be thinking to myself, okay, this company has about 90 days until they realize how good of a worker I am and that my ideas are bomb until I put in my 2-week notice. I'm just keeping it a beam because I know how these things go, and I know that that was a great idea. I know that that could get the company more money, right? But this is for a scenario not to be biased, so I'm gonna also chime in on the Aries point of view as well. A lot of times in corporations, what they'll do now, since women entered the workforce, shout out to y'all ladies, you know what I'm saying? Now you know how it feels. So y'all entered the workforce, which means we have more people inside of the workforce now, which can actually take on the roles of these additional jobs. But what happens is, in the process of doing that, the CEO pays the employees less because there's now more people to take the position. So, truth be told, the Aries boss probably won't care if I put my 2-week notice in eventually and say, I feel like I need more. I feel like I deserve more because I got bright ideas around here and I know how to make this thing more simpler and easier. Because they're going to feel like, well, we have somebody to replace you no matter what, because there's so many people who need jobs out here now. So if you want to go, you can go. But this thing is still going to go the way that I said that it's going to go. You feel me? So Virgo mind may go back to imagining like, oh, okay, you know what? I might even start my own business because I know the ins and outs of this. You know what I'm saying? I could become an independent contractor and do all of this work and get more money, and it'll be simpler. You know what I mean? Either way, even if they independently contract out with another company that does the same thing, or if they take it on to themselves to start their own business. Either way, it's a win-win for Virgo when they get out of there and do something that's more aligned to themselves. Corporations also do this. Like, a corporation will know that they have more locations and can obtain more money with those locations by applying speed to getting them done, right? But let's say that this company is a middleman company, meaning they get people to contract with them and say, look, I got these flyers, I got these advertisements, I want to put up in a whole lot of places. The middleman company says, yeah, I got employees on ready to go. Like, they'll do these things for you, how much you want to pay. And then they negotiate a price, right? So the price is set up in a way that is like this. And the middleman company gets profit by utilizing it this type of way. Now, what can happen is the Aries company in this scenario will know that they can get these additional locations done in a quicker way, in a more efficient way. But because someone else is externally bankrolling the job, right? And I've seen corporations do this firsthand. What they'll do is they'll tell the employee, like, listen, slow down. Who asked you? Like I said, you doing the most now. You doing too much. Reason being because they'll delay the person bankrolling the job, and they'll be like putting the bankroller under pressure, the other company under pressure, especially if it's a company that doesn't, a lot of the times when companies want stuff done, they don't research the knowledge to do it themselves. That's why they outsource it, because that company is skilled in doing it already. So they won't know what this company knows, what the Aries knows. So they'll get under pressure a little bit. They may see a delay in time and maybe getting down to the wire, and they're like, yo, I need this quota filled. What's going on? Can it be done? Can it be done? And then you're like, yeah, I'm sure it could be done. Just give it a little time. Just give it a little time. Now remember, slowing up the whole Virgo's plan and everything. Like, just give it some time. We'll get it done. We'll get it done. Now, the outsourcer, the parent company, will call it, that's hiring this Aries corporation, is going to say, well, you know what? Here goes some additional money. If you could speed it up and make it happen in any type of way, that'd be great. I'd be thankful. So they'll take the additional money and say, okay, you know what I mean? We'll do everything that we can in our power with this whole logic in play. You know what I'm saying? And they may or may not take the Virgo's way, the Virgo's route. They may just utilize their other employees and do it the way that they initially have had it programmed to do. Or they may even take Virgo's idea and initiate it. But bet believe they're going to cut some off the top, put some more on the back on a profit, and doing it in that particular way. And I'm telling you, when the Virgo finds out stuff like this is even more of a reason for them to say, you know what, y'all are foul. You know what I'm saying? But I understand it's business and this, that, and the third. But me personally, I'm going to negotiate a better price or a better, salary for myself based upon me knowing these things. And again, maybe I should just go into independent contracting or opening up a company for myself, right? But nonetheless, these additional dots or jobs can be done after imagining them, because all it takes is proper planning prevents poor performance, right? And it can be done. So this is equivalent, not exact, but equivalent to utilizing the subconscious mind in a dream to actualize it in a 3D when the particle collapses. It's just using the imagination. I hope I'm making sense, right? If I'm not making sense, just please get in the comment section. I will clarify or elaborate as best as I can. So let me bring up another slide here. I'm on a roll right now. Like, I'm cracking codes, B. I'm telling y'all, B. Like, I'm out here, for real. Let me bring up this next slide. So this next slide I got up here is called Game Chips Equal Opportunity Cost, right? So remember, we spoke about game chips before. It's written in pink because Venus rules over money, and Venus rules over the game chips that we have in the game of life to play, to interact, to make deals and negotiate contracts with each other, right? Now, I've mentioned opportunity cost in a couple of videos back, and I was like, I didn't want to get into it too deep right now, but now is the time that I'm going to get into it. So, opportunity cost is basically when you could be doing something right now that'll pay you a certain amount of money, or you could be doing something else that does not pay you that a certain amount of money. It could pay you less. It could pay you more. But the purpose is going to cost something. So sometimes I guess people don't look at life like that. They don't look at it as if, let's say, being unemployed for a moment, and you just like, you know what, I got some savings. I'm going to just sit on my ass for 3 months and figure this thing out the best way that I want and just binge watch TV for a little bit. I deserve it. You know what I'm saying? And that's your right to do. You know what I mean? But in the financial scheme of things, they'll say that you are squandering your opportunity cost. Because while you're sitting on your ass for 3 months, there is a position out there that will pay you in this scenario. A web programmer, for example, will pay you $150,000 a year. The quicker you put that application in and get hired, you will start making $150,000 a year. Now let's compare that to a web influencer, for example, who makes, you see I got question marks there. You don't know how much you're going to make a year. You web influencers out there, y'all know what I'm talking about, right? Because it's boom or bust. You don't know. You know what I'm saying? You're going to create something. You're going to put it out there. You're going to post it. Google AdSense might pay you this much this month, that much next month, nothing the next month. You just don't know. It's uncertain, right? So I want you to ask yourself this question rather quickly. Who is smarter, the web programmer who takes the opportunity course to make 150 grand a year, or the web influencer who does not know what they're going to make it this year? Who's smarter? I'll tell you the answer. Neither one of them is smarter. It really depends. Life is what you make it, y'all. Life is what you make it. I'm going to explain why, right? Let's say the web programmer gets hired for 150 grand, 50 grand a year, right? I said grams. No grams, right? So they get hired, boom. Now, this company that hires them, let's say they're one of the top tech companies in the world. Just want you to imagine something right now. When you look at the salaries, top salaries to the lower salaries in the job market right now, if someone is willing to pay you 150 grand a year for what you do, one would say to themselves, what I do must be very important. It really must be. Why would they pay me 150 grand a year to do it? I can tell you why. One reason at least. Not that people are just malicious and evil and just trying to keep you stuck. But one reason is, if you were to go off on your own and try to strike out on your own with that knowledge that you have as a web programmer, there's a high chance that you'll become their competitor. How long of a time will it take for that to happen? We don't know, right? But they know that. People in the tech industry know that. So what they do is they say, hey, I'll get you 150 grand a year. You may take it. And again, life is what you make it. I'm not saying who's wrong or who's right. It's kind of like rappers when they sign the deals and then they shelf them. Why would you sign a deal, give a person an advance, and then shelf them? Because they mad nice. And you don't want them taking over, getting signed by somebody else taking over. So you're going to take their source, hear them record their 2 or 3 albums before you shelf it. Nah, that ain't cool. Somebody else comes out a year later with their same style. You know what I mean? Let me not go off too much on it. Let's get back to this scenario, right? So now the web influencer on the contrary, right? Maybe struggling, entrepreneur style, eating bread some nights, just thugging it out. You know what I'm saying? Creating, posting. Next thing you know, they Revolt gives them a call. Even some toss a name out there. Revolt gives them a call. Hey, I seen what you're doing with the clips and stuff like that. It looks like a podcast. Is that a podcast? It's like, nah, I wouldn't really call it a podcast. But they're like, I think you should. I think it's that good. You should borrow some nice. You should call it a podcast. You know what I'm saying? And come up with a decent enough name. We'd love to hire you. You know what I mean? And then you might hear them out. Yeah, okay. And then lastly, you'd be like, well, what's the numbers looking like? What would you suggest? Oh, we'll start you off with 200 grand. Easy. You know what I mean? And then at the end of the year, we look at the statistics, we can give you a bonus. You know what I mean? And then we can renegotiate terms after a year or 2 years or 3 years, whatever they come up with, right? You're like, wow. So yeah, you might have took the opportunity course of getting paid nothing for, let's say, 9 months, or maybe the whole year. Let's say the whole year, 0 opportunity course, right? But now you just landed a $200,000 deal. You already surpassed the web programmer. You see what I'm saying? Neither one of them is right or wrong. Life is what you make it, and this is what I mean about the communicated paths and the commuted paths that we take in everyday life in the conscious 3D particle game of life, to where it contrasts to what you imagine. Because the web influencer, you got to imagine that the web influencer was just imagining, like, man, I don't know why I just turned down 150 grand to do that web programming job, and instead I'm just sitting here doing videos, but Spirit is just telling me to make these videos. I can't help it. Like, I gotta make these videos, yo. So they're just imagining what life could be like if they was to strike oil, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? But they don't quite know because they're uncertain. But they're using their imagination, right? Letting their imagination run wild, right? And then the next thing you know, they get another phone call. Hey, from a company that let's just say a company that's like a comedy company that does skits, right? And they're like, oh, I seen some of your clips, and I think you're hilarious. I think you're very funny, and I also seen the rest of your content when you're more serious and stuff like that. The way that you articulate yourself is very good. Do you like freestyle that or come off of the hip, or is that written? You like, nah, I write down, I script it out before I do it, and I like hang it up on the wall, and then I say it like that. You know what I mean? So that's why it comes out so well intentioned, the way that you perceive it to be. And they're like, well, actually, I think that's an outstanding thing. You know what I mean? To the point where I heard you just landed the podcast deal with Revolt or whatever the case may be. So I would give you flexible hours if you would come on board with us. And you'd be like, well, maybe that would take too much of my time. You sure? And like, no, we don't want you to actually write, record, edit, and all of that. We just want you to write for us. We just want you to use some of that writing that you got going on with us and come on board with us. Flexible hours, maybe part-time or what have you. We'll do a season or two and see how it goes. Okay, let me think about it. By the way, what are the numbers like? Oh, we give you 500 grand. 500 grand? Oh, okay. I think I thought about it long enough. You understand what I'm saying? I'm just making my point here. Like, this is what can potentially happen. So, neither one of them is smarter, right or wrong. You know what I'm saying? Life is what you make it. And you can utilize the subconscious mind in the conscious mind to make things happen in the 3D in a particle wave. You know what I mean? It's just about what you choose, what path you take. Now, below that, I have another opportunity course model, right? This is for finances alone. Not too long ago, I went into a financial class. Yes, even with the business education and all that, I still go do research and will take courses from people and stuff like that. So I'm sitting in this class, and this guy is actually bringing this up, and he's telling this is something that I've learned before in school as well, right? But sometimes you need to be reminded. Sometimes you need that reminder. So he asked all of us. He said, "Is $100,000 a lot of money?" He went from like $1 all the way up, right? He was like, "Is $100,000 a lot of money?" And I was sitting there, I was like, "Nah." I was like, I done ran through 100 grand before. You know what I'm saying? No problem. Like, it's not. I said it's decent. Don't get me wrong, it's decent, but 100 grand is not a lot of money. He said, okay. He said, this is basically another opportunity course model, but he didn't call it that. And he said, okay, so most people when they grow up, they hear their parents tell them and their grandparents tell them, make sure you put your money in the bank, save your money in the bank, right? And then he said, well, what's the interest cost of a bank right now? And I was like, usually it's like 0.25%. You know what I'm saying? Like, it really ain't nothing. He was like, exactly, I hear you. So he was like, after a year, you got your 100 grand in a savings account. It's going to give you $250. Okay. So he said, well, let's go higher. Let's do this again. He said, well, what happens if you put that 100 grand in a CD account? And I'm like, okay, that sounds a little better. You know what I mean? I know about CD accounts. And he was like, we're going to say this CD account gives off 4%, pays 4% interest after a year. So that would make your 100,000 give you $4 grand at the end of the year. I'm like, okay. Everybody in the class is like, okay. And then he was like, well, what if you put your 100 grand inside of a mutual fund, which averages 12% a year? And then the class started nodding like, yeah, we starting to talk now. And then the number came out, 12 grand a year, right? From a mutual fund. So one of the people in the class said, so what do you think I should do if I don't have any money? If, let's say I just bought an internet connection, cost me $40 a month because I'm working at home and I'm a web influencer or something like that, right? So the teacher said, well, let's go back to the dollar example. $1 a day, if you put $1 a day away for such and such amount of time in a 12% mutual fund, then you'll have this much money, then you'll have this much money. And he said, well, the issue was he did not hear the question correctly, right? The question flew over his head. Dude is not asking him like that. He's like, yo, I don't have $1 a day. What if I don't have $1 a day? So the teacher goes back to like, well, you can get bottles and cans and stuff like that. Dude is like, listen, you're not hearing me, right? If you go and take your time to collect bottles and cans, it's not that dude was lazy. He's like, yo, if I go and collect bottles and cans all day, then I'm squandering the $40 that I spent on the internet connection to work from home. I'm not doing what I imagined to do. I'm not, you understand what I'm saying? I will be putting my 3D particle, collapsed particle, 3D conscious energy into collecting bottles and cans instead. And then the next thing you know, I got a sunken cost from the investment in the internet connection. So it kind of puzzled the teacher there. You know what I'm saying? And then he basically went back to like, well, you got to do something. Do it part-time and start there and this, that, and third. And I understood. You know what I'm saying? I'm not faulting the teacher for not, coming up with an alternative for the guy. But that's why I put job security under this, because sometimes teachers especially, they overlook the part of job security. It's not, first of all, it's not like it used to be, right? And second of all, and us learning astrology this long, we know that everyone's not built for it the way that it's set up. It's just not everyone's cup of tea. It's not in your natal chart to be working for somebody for 20 to 30 years and the pension, and then you put this amount every month on auto pay and all. That is not everyone's life. It just isn't. So what do you say? One of them is wrong. The one who does not take the job or look for the job or collects the bottles and cans, are they smarter or not smarter than it? It's not like that. It's about the path that you choose. You know what I'm saying? So job security is a real issue, which brings me to this part. What is the purpose of your money? I know what I said before. Money is the byproduct of purpose. So the web influencer had a purpose. They didn't know what the money was going to be for. You know what I mean? And that kind of worked in their favor. They was just like, well, money is not the real issue right now. The real issue that's irritating my soul is that I'm not doing what I feel like I'm called to do. You understand what I'm saying? Now, we could flip it and go to the web programmer who got the 150 grand a year. What if they didn't have this opportunity financial calculator cost thing? And they didn't know what to do with the money. They got it like lotto winners. They got the money, and they was just like, oh, okay, I'm going to move over here. I'm going to get this car. I'm going to get that car. I'm going to get this gym membership. I'm going to get that membership. I'm going to take the kids there on this trip and this, that, and third. And at the end of the year, they got like $1,500. It happens, B. There's a lot of people out there making 150 grand a year who are struggling. I've seen the posts all over social media. So that's why it's very important to understand what the purpose of your money is, so that when it comes, you know what to do with it. And then it becomes like Billie Jean. Like I said, the floor lights up like Billie Jean. You know what I'm saying? That's why I'm telling you, sometimes you could be in the workplace. If you know what your money is for, they'll give you orders like, so yeah, you got to go scoop up the shit from the front yard. And then when you get back, I need you to mop the ceiling. And you're like, okay, done. That attitude or that confidence comes from knowing what you're going to do with your money, what you're going to do with that paycheck. You already know the day that you're putting in your 2-week notice based upon what you make. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of people who are not mega rich, they do this all of the time, right? Y'all do this all of the time. Y'all got your paycheck planned out before you even arrives on Friday. Y'all know exactly what it's going to. It's the same technique. It's the same mentality of knowing what the purpose of your money is, because these are your game chips, baby. These are your game chips. Now, let me bring up this slide too. This is the last slide, so hang with me, y'all. If you've been here this long, I applaud you. So, this slide right here says, game chips reward speed. Now, you may have heard me say this before. This is psychologically proven that money rewards speed. We can look at it in a scenario as far as like an Olympic gold medalist or an athlete, just to summarize it very quickly, right? In sports, there's a first place, there's second place, and there's third place, right? Who gets the gold? First place. Quick, right? Summarize that, made it real simple for us, right? The speed is what gets more currency. There's a deep psychological studies on this and stuff. You can look it up, literature, go to Google Scholar if you don't want to pay for one of the other platforms to get the research, right? So right here, what I have is a list of things that is needed for speed, because speed is a factor in manifestation when it comes to especially the 3D particle. The 3D particle collapsed conscious game of life. For those of you who don't know the body parts that are assigned to the astrological signs, you should do your research and find that out, because this is going to be very important for your manifestations. So the list goes as such: comprehension, hand and eye coordination, which is color coded in blue because they're Gemini factors, Gemini attributes. Focus, which is a sun attribute, coded in yellow. Memory I have coded as gray and red. Reason being is the moon is long-term memory. Mars is short-term memory, muscle memory, right? You do something repetitive enough, you could do it subconsciously now because you've done it so many times, it's like clockwork, right? And then long-term memory, because there might be some time when you be on the job and you like, yo, you got to retrieve something that you learned back in the day, maybe from school or something. You got to pick that out the file and utilize it in the moment, right? So that's important as well. Fasting is up here. Do not sleep on fasting. The word fast is inside of fasting for a reason. You'll notice that when you consume more, you become more sluggish, right or wrong. You get the itis, B. However, when you fast, you will also notice that you have super energy to the point where sometimes you might beg your body like, yo, we need to get some sleep, because your mind is not used to your body having this additional extra energy. So it doesn't necessarily know what to do with it in the beginning. Speak to people who be fasting, you will know like, yo, all of this energy, now you sleeping 6 hours instead of 8 and stuff like that, and you just jumping up when you wake up in the morning. Yeah, because you're lighter. So it adds on to the speed. And then exercise is the last on the list. Exercise is what is needed for what we call alignment, because it brings mind, body, and soul into cohesiveness, and spirit into cohesiveness. I just told a friend not too long ago, a few days ago, they was like, yo, I feel like, you know what I mean, as a creator now, they doing a lot of more creation and stuff like that, and they got other stuff going on the side, and they like, yo, I be feeling like, you know, I'm making decent money and this, that, and the third, but I still be feeling like I'm not doing enough. And I said, the reason why that's called being unfulfilled, the reason why you're unfulfilled is why I'm doing this slide right now, because money is the byproduct of purpose. I said, if you knew everything that your money was going to, after you got it, you would be much more happier. You would be fulfilled, because you would feel like it's clockwork. You would feel like the floor's lighting up like Billie Jean. All of your steps are unfolding. But you can make any amount of money. You can make wild money and still be unfulfilled. That's why you hear about rich people being unfulfilled. They haven't really sat down and made a plan with all of the money that they're going to make. So I tell my people, quick, listen, get a pen and a paper and write down everything. They be like, write down a plan? I'm like, yo, write down. But I'm not playing. I'm talking about write down everything. The cost of the building. Go touch the building. Go look at it and everything. How much does it cost? Square feet? Everything. How much is the property tax? How much is the... Everything. Everything. Because this is your dream. This is what you set out to do, right? You want to wing it and let it just happen and be in the moment and wing it. You could do that, right? Like I said, there's no right or wrong. You could do that. But when you want to stay focused and you want to be in alignment and you don't want to feel unfulfilled on your path, you don't want to have doubts and stuff like that, I suggest you do so. So now the whole exercise thing is in black because it's Saturn ruled. When your body, when you're building anything, it's Saturn ruled. So when you're building your body, it's Saturn ruled. And what you'll notice is that when you do all of these things, your body acts as the astrological wheel, from head to Aries, from toe to Pisces. And the more that you take action with these things, you'll see the floor light up like Billie Jean for you, according to your plan. Remember, the developments is the Pisces energy, the imagination, the subconscious mind. That's where the bigger picture is being developed. Now you're actualizing it in the 3D collapsed particle by utilizing your body. You are a time machine, and that's why that is labeled over there. You are a time machine. This is when the 3D particle is collapsed, though, right? This is the collapsed particle. Now, game chips, on the other hand, reward time when in wave form. All right? What I mean by that is back to the vehicles that we saw for the opportunity cost for the finances, right? You put the $100,000 in an instrument, in a vehicle, in a financial vehicle that pays a certain amount of money over time. That's where the game chips get rewarded, for time. So think about it again in the wave. If we go back to the first slide, when I had the dream about Shorty, and I said it was like 9 months to a year before it actualized, right? That's time, right? So one may say, well, I ain't got that much time. I had that dream about her. I was naked, da-da-da. Not that it was even like that, yo, right? But, you know, I want to experience that now. I could have rushed the process. I could have hit her up right after having a dream. Like, yo, I just had a dream about you. I need you to come over. When can you come over? You know what I'm saying? I could have rushed the whole experience. But I'm just chilled back. You know what I mean? Laid back, chilly moso. You know what I'm saying? And it just happened anyway. it happened anyway. Gave it some time. And remember, she postponed it for another day too. What if I'd have just texted back like, yo, fuck you, bitch? You know what I'm saying? Like, and then the whole thing would have been called off. It never happens. You know what I'm saying? Now, it didn't happen that way, but this is what I'm saying about time, right? So think about it like this. You could utilize your body for actualization in the 3D particle collapsed form, right? And then you may feel like you're tiring. You may feel like you need a break. You may feel like you're getting worn down. Your body is wearing down. Your energy is low and stuff like that because you're trading energy for finances, right? But if you get this financial vehicle thing patted down and you have a bigger dream, and you may say to yourself, well, if I keep going at this rate, at this job, getting this salary, I'm not going to be able to actualize this thing until maybe 30, 40 years later anyway. But if you hold on to enough, if you revise your plan and your strategy, you may say, but if I get this amount of money every week, then I could put this amount away every week. And then when the income tax come, I just throw the whole thing in there. And then that'll take the time from 30 years to 10 years. Or it could be vice versa. You could really be realistic and be like, yo, my plan is so big that at this rate right now, it's going to take me 20 years to actualize it fully. There are some people that will exercise their Pluto to the utmost and say, game, I'm with it. Or their Saturn as well. Like, okay, I could wait that time. And what may happen in the process is that you may get windfalls and additional bonuses along the way that accelerate that process. But the point is, the game chips are going to reward time. How much time can you wait? How much time can you refrain in some instances? Sometimes it's not all about the speed. You get what I'm saying? It depends on whether you're using the wave function or if you're using the collapse function. You get what I'm saying? So I hope this helped everybody that watched it. If you stood to this end, you are a superstar. And you know, I told you I'm on a roll right now, so I'm cracking codes. On my way here to do this video, I just stumbled upon, because the $1 million question is this. This is what I asked myself when I was designing these charts. I said, yo, but the $1 million question is this, right? How can I know? How can I detect what time it'll take, or what path even it needs to be taken for me to have seen Shorty and actualize that in my lab for real in the 3D particle? How do I know? Because I just had a dream not too long ago about another chick, right? And we was somewhere that was so lavish, B. I'm talking about there was a swimming pool inside this huge, like, resort type, but it could have been a house, like those smart homes. And then the windows, it was no walls. The walls was windows. You could see right out, and the beaches out there. Now, who has a beach house with a swimming pool in it? Like, why do you need all of this water, right? Like, it was just extra just because motherfuckers had it like that. You know what I mean? And then a train had rolled by overhead, and we looking up at the train. It was just wild. You know what I'm saying? Trains and buses and dreams mean time. Some things are actually going to take more time than you thought that they were. And according to what I've seen in that dream, bars of nights, we know that already, what it would cost, even if we was just there on a trip, the cost would be something serious, right? But I know me. Like, and I know my feeling when I was there. I think the emotional state has a lot to do with this as well. I didn't tap into that here, but that's moon energy. And I think it would take some time to generate that type of revenue in order to have a place like that. You understand what I'm saying? So I cracked the code, I believe, on how to detect that now. Before, I didn't even know astrology when I had that dream and this happened, right? I just recorded the dream, realized it, and then when I started studying astrology, I'm like, maybe I could apply this in some type of way. You know what I mean? And another thing about the emotional state is, like I said, I could have got angry with Shorty when she had postponed it or didn't even show up at all, right? And exercised the negative emotions that are attached to Mars, because I'd have felt like it's too real, or I'd have felt disappointed, or I'd have felt disrespected, right? It's all in the mind. It's all in the imagination. Or I could have just been chilly moso like I was. I was just like, all right, she brushed me off, she stood me up. She came the next day. Oh, look at patience. Look at not getting over emotional about things. It's the feeling state does have a lot to do with it. So I know when you hear manifestors talking about the feeling state, the feeling needs to match the person that you're becoming or that you will become. Yeah, there's truth to that. But I cracked the code on how to detect, I believe so, on how to detect the timing of actualizing, let's say, dreams, or even if it's a daydream, something that you imagine and you planned. And I'm going to explain it in the next video. So, till next time, I'm out.